The United States is doomed. Perhaps that's the conclusion if you read some of the latest numbers about research and development. John Bussey, who writes the business column for the Wall Street Journal, has some points of view on this. We're doomed, right? It's over. Asia's spending more money in R&D than we are.
You know, once again, just constantly the Pollyanna. I just don't know what to do about you. Look, Battelle in R&D magazine came out with a big study at the end of last year, which says, we're connecting the dots, and it's pretty evident that Asia is going to pass the U.S. in total R&D spending. But last week,
and as R&D goes, so goes fortunes of a country, right?
Presumably so, right? Particularly in basic sciences. You may agree or disagree with government or academic institutions involved with basic science. Should they be spending taxpayer money that way? But a lot of those integrated circuits that were invented, years ago in the U.S. are kind of in machines now. Specifically, corporate R&D, if you were to look at that, a report out last week says that there's going to be robust spending in the U.S. for U.S. headquartered companies. Almost 10% growth in spending next year is forecast just by culling through the 10Ks, what the companies are saying. And that mirrors what happened this year. So they're coming out of the recession, admittedly, but this is 2 years of kind of forecast, substantial R&D. So it doesn't quite put the lie to the big trends, right? You have huge economies in Asia that are growing, and with that is going to grow R&D, particularly in China, where a lot of it's government funded and government subsidized. Right. But it's not as if the U.S. is back on its heels.
Right, which gets us to the subject of high-level innovators. I'm not quite sure what that means, whether it's someone coming up with great ideas in a skyscraper. What's a high-level innovator, John?
Well, this is a high leverage. Is
high leverage.
That's okay. The way it's it's terminology no matter what. But Booz and Company looked at this and said, something. At the end of the day, how much you spend on R&D is not statistically connected to how you're going to perform financially. So back in 2007, and they said the data has been basically consistent ever since. They looked at the top 20 big spenders, okay, at the top of the list, guess who? GM and a bunch of others. And then they did a different study. They said, okay, let's look at the highly leveraged innovators, those who perform better.
So effort on one level, results on the other.
Yeah.
They didn't square up. Those with the greater results were not necessarily those with the most money spent.
Exactly right. You cut to the chase. And they looked at over 7 different parameters and ways of kind of examining this. And they found exactly that it doesn't really kind of matter. I mean, Apple at various points wasn't even in the top 20. And yet, here you have one of the best innovators.
Now, John, I got to give you a little bit of grief about one of the examples in your column. You spoke to people at the hotel chain. Westin hotel chain. And it seemed they have a great innovation budget. They are now, through their great thought, they're going to provide workout clothes for their customers who come and stay.
Yes.
And this is part of their great innovative move to dislodge the Asian hotel chains, particularly in Asia.
Yes, slightly overstated.
I say not innovative. I say no.
Slightly overstated.
Sweaty clothes.
It's for people like you who are too cheap, to pay for the extra bag to get on your airplane. So you leave your gym clothes behind, so they give you loaners. Well, Westin was we were just talking about innovation in the hotel zone, and they were talking about their new beds and new business centers, and also this arrangement. All right, so that kind of
innovation?
Is that R&D? I mean, it's innovation of sorts.
I don't know. How do you R&D that?
Well, if you were to ask Boston Consulting Group, they would say the definitions of R&D are just too sort of circumscribed, and they're too narrow. You need to be thinking of R&D that brings in new customers and expands your business. And in that instance, what Westin is doing is kind of in that sphere of innovation. And when Boston Consulting Group asked 1,500 companies, well, are you going to be spending more or a lot more on this kind of innovation?
Yes. Of course they are. They can't
75%
say no.
said yes.
What CEO could say no? We're just not. It's the politically correct thing as a business person. We're all tied up in innovation. Innovation is what drives the economy. We had a great story in the Journal the other day about how companies use the word innovation.
Overly use it. This is back in May. Overly
rather
use
indiscriminately.
Right.
So let's take it to the last point because we got to go here. But are Asian companies good at effective R&D? My gut check response, knowing nothing, I'd say relatively not.
Well,
particularly the Chinese ones.
Yeah, if you ask some historians of this, they'll say, hey, look at Japan, we thought they were going to eat our lunch, and at the end of the day, they just couldn't get the ecosystem of innovation together the way the U.S. does, with venture cap, communication between academics and business, all of the sort of the open workspace culture that goes into innovating. My sense of it is that you have a lot of economies, particularly China, that are at the front end of modernizing.
Of doing that.
And they're at the front end of doing that, and they're sending their kids here. So it's a matter of time.
It's really culture that matters as much or perhaps more than raw dollars.
Right. Booz
Culture
and Company would say culture definitely wins.
Culture wins, okay.
Yeah.
John Bussey, do you say culture wins?
I say it wins right now.
Okay, but not forever.
Until they develop the culture,
Okay.
which
So
I
it's only a
suspect
matter
they
of
will.
time.